yourself down, sir. There we go. Much better. Alright. Will we ever see a humor set? Like the Unhinged and MTG. Those sets are awesome. Would like to, at some point when it's feasible. The game has to be, a decent size for that to happen first. So what we're gonna do, tell me if the music's too loud, by the way, and I'll just turn it off. It's fine. We're gonna go over one of my favorite features in this upcoming patch, the weekly deck rotation. If you look at the very bottom of the stream, underneath the viewer panel, what you'll see are a whole bunch of panels there. Garbage Pail Kid set. Garbage Pail Kid set. That's funny. I love that stuff. You did, Ricochet. Go to the very bottom of the stream in the panels. I think it's on the bottom right. You'll see a deck submission form. And what that does is it's a little contest that we hold every now and then. We take a look at the decks that have been submitted in there. And when we select one, the person that has their deck selected is going to get a prize. We'll figure out the prize when we start doing it. And then we're going to do a deck spotlight video on our own YouTube channel about that deck. We want to be able to give players information on what kind of decks they can play, what kind of thoughts they can utilize. It helps players ease into playing a game as robust as a card game. But how does that tie into weekly deck rotations, and what are weekly deck rotations? Well, you saw the new deck selection screen earlier, and you saw this down on the bottom left. Weekly free decks. Well, as I'm sure many of you know, there's a concept in many MOBAs, like League of Legends, where you have a weekly champion or hero or god or whatever it be rotation. And what this means for Infinity Wars is we're going to have 5 weekly free decks. Okay? We have a huge repository of a whole bunch of different kinds of deck themes. ACOLYTE Reanimator, Cyber-Infested Dragon, Acolyte of the Altar, Cyber-Infested Dragon, gives you, as you'll see down here, deck type, a combination style deck, high complexity, then gives you a description of the deck. Gives you a little bit about how to understand its power. Built in with 40 whatever cards it needs, and then the sideboard as necessary. Yes, I know, this looks like a lot more than 5. That's because these are all of the decks that we have in the repository right now, and we're going to be adding a lot more to them. When this feature hits the live server, it's only going to be 5 at a time, randomly selected from all of the ones that are in the database. So you're going to have all of this info available to you. You cannot load this deck. You cannot view it in the deck builder. You can only see this. You cannot change it. You do not get these cards in your collection. You can only play with the deck while this is free. Okay, and it'll last for a week. Once it rotates, you'll have 5 new decks in this weekly free deck area. Yep, Death Trap is in here, absolutely. 3 Infested Abominations, one of them using the Exile's Purity, the other one's using 2 Sleeper's Purity. Absolutely. Yep, Death Trap is definitely in here. Robbie and Ian added a lot of these in here. Absolutely. Does everyone get the same 5 decks for that week? Yes. Everyone will see the same 5 decks in this weekly free deck list. Absolutely. So we look at BIONIC Paladin. Combination aggro, medium complexity. Take a trip back into the history of Infinity Wars with one of the first ever meta decks, BIONIC Paladin. Typically, a Paladin of the Flame Dawn's weakness is his small size, but with the power of Secluded Constructor and a Letta Immortal Caretaker behind him, a single Paladin can become all but invincible. On turn 1, use Aletta to immediately buff the Paladin. From there on, you'll want to use various artificial characters in conjunction with the Secluded Constructor to buff your Paladins to untold levels of power. Bad Bot may normally be really bad, but in this deck, our Harmless Robot is one of the most powerful cards we have. Aside from Paladin, the deck contains many great targets to buff up, such as Resolute Knight and Ember Starter, which give extra value when they gain additional stats. So you'll see the commanders up here: Aletta, Immortal Caretaker, Paladin of the Flame Dawn, and Secluded Constructor. You got the deck list here, and 12 cards sideboard. Full description of the deck, how to think, how to play, all of that. If they are randomly selected, is there a chance for repeats the following week? Yes. Yes, there are. Yeah, the descriptions are very robust. And one of the questions that I'm sure one of you guys have, whoa, don't mind me, I'm just punching my mic apparently. One of the questions that I'm sure you guys have is, how does the deck Spotlight fit into this, right? So what we do is, if we like a deck that's in the deck Spotlight that doesn't already have a deck in this list, we're going to add that deck into the database for the weekly rotation. We're just going to straight up put that deck in the weekly rotation for players, new and old alike, to utilize whenever they want. And then at the end of the week, they'll rotate to a new 5. The reason I love this feature so much is because this helps new players immensely. One of the biggest challenges new players face when coming into a complex card game like Infinity Wars is trying to find ways to become relevant. Sometimes that's not necessarily about a collection. Sometimes that's about how to think. And these decks are a wonderful tool to get new players on that path. There you go, Ricochet. There you go. It certainly helps, Timbu. It certainly helps. And so far, to my knowledge, we're the only card game doing this. But, you know, we're very interested in helping new players with how to think, with how to understand Infinity Wars. And to me, this is one of the best things we've done towards that end. I love this. I absolutely love that we can give this to our players. Yeah, exactly, Ricochet. This helps players become acquainted with Infinity Wars. It doesn't help their collection. It doesn't, you know, do much for them other than help them think. Yeah, exactly what Swiftwind said. This is really, really good. Really, really good. Clear Shot. I love this. Varroa Magic Siphoner, Bloodthirsty Dead, Flame Dawn Commando. Combination deck, high complexity. Use a critical mass of ability cards in Varroa Magic Siphoner to kill the opponent in one massive attack. Most of the ability cards in the deck can be used defensively if needed. To play the deck well, you'll need to balance using your abilities to stay alive and preparing for your combo. Save up for one big turn where you use all of your abilities to move your opponent's characters out of the way for a massive Siphoner or two, one-shotting your opponent. Every ability card in the deck costs very little, allowing you to play many in a single turn. Fear is a particularly interesting card, and single-handedly is the reason for Sleepers of Avarak in the deck. If needed, Fear can also be used to keep you alive one more turn. If the opponent has too many characters on the field for you to push through, you can play Fear, then Word of Command or Ferocity on your Siphoners to move them into the now empty battlefield. Very robust descriptions, helping the player learn, again, how to think. Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorite things our guys have ever done. This is such a big deal for new players. Anyone coming into Infinity Wars can get acquainted with the game because of this feature. And as all of these will show you, these aren't starter decks. These are not basic, you know, run-of-the-mill starter pack decks. Swift, I apologize if you weren't listening to what I was saying earlier. That's what the deck submission at the very bottom of the stream is for. Feel free to pass that along